What if I told you that a mother forced her daughter to live in a wheelchair, shaved her head to make her look like a cancer patient, and convinced an entire community her child was dying, only for it all to end in murder? This is the twisted true story of Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard was the perfect mother. At least, that's what everyone thought. Her daughter, Gypsy Rose, looked fragile, bald, pale, always in a wheelchair. Dee Dee said Gypsy had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, seizures, and a dozen other illnesses. Neighbors called them the sweetest pair. Charities built them a free house. Celebrities gave them trips to Disney World. The community rallied around this brave little girl and her devoted mother. But behind closed doors, Gypsy wasn't sick at all. Dee Dee was suffering from Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a mental disorder where a caregiver fabricates or even causes illness in someone they're caring for, just to get attention and sympathy. She shaved Gypsy's head to make her look like a chemo patient. She forced her to use a wheelchair, even though Gypsy could walk. Doctors who questioned Dee Dee's story were shut down. Medical records were altered. Gypsy grew up believing she was terminally ill, completely dependent on her mother. But as Gypsy got older, she started realizing something was very wrong. She could walk. She didn't feel sick. She even secretly accessed the internet and started talking to people online. That's when she met a boyfriend in a chat room. Together, they came up with a plan, not just to escape, but to kill Dee Dee. In 2015, Dee Dee Blanchard was found stabbed to death in her bedroom. At first, everyone thought Gypsy had been kidnapped by whoever did it. But the truth was even darker. Gypsy had helped plan her mother's murder. The revelation shocked the nation. The world had gone from seeing Gypsy as a poor, sick child, to a killer. But as more details came out, her years of abuse, her stolen childhood, public opinion shifted. Was she a murderer, or a victim finally breaking free? In the end, Gypsy Rose pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Her boyfriend received life without parole. Today, Gypsy Rose is free, and her story continues to divide people. Was justice really served? Or was this the only way she could escape her mother's twisted lies? What do you think? Was Gypsy Rose a criminal or a survivor? Imagine sneaking out to meet your best friends late at night, but instead of a fun drive, they lead you to your death. This is the shocking true story of Skylar Nees, the teenager murdered by the people she trusted most. Skylar Nees was a 16-year-old honor student from Star City, West Virginia. Bright, funny, and social, she loved spending time with her two best friends, Shilia, Eddie, and Rachel Schoaf. The trio was inseparable, always seen together at school and posting selfies online. But beneath the smiles, there was tension. Skylar had started drifting apart from Shilia and Rachel, and arguments began to surface. On July 6, 2012, Skylar snuck out of her bedroom window around midnight to meet her friends. A security camera caught her climbing into a car. That was the last time she was ever seen alive. When Skylar didn't come home, her parents panicked. At first, authorities thought she was a runaway. But her friends claimed they had dropped her off near her house after driving around. For months, Shilia and Rachel pretended to be heartbroken. They joined search efforts, posted tributes online, and acted like grieving best friends. Meanwhile, Skylar's parents begged for answers, convinced something sinister had happened. The truth was darker than anyone imagined. In December 2012, cracks began to show. Rachel Schoaf broke down and confessed to police. She admitted that she and Shilia had lured Skylar out that night and stabbed her to death in the woods. When asked why, Rachel gave a chilling answer: "We just didn't like her anymore." The girls had planned Skylar's murder weeks in advance, even bringing knives with them. They drove her across the state line, walked into a secluded area, and on the count of 3, began stabbing their supposed best friend. They left her body under branches and fled as if nothing happened. In early 2013, Skylar's remains were discovered. The community was shattered. How could two smiling teenage girls commit such a cold-blooded murder? Rachel Schoaf made a plea deal and received 30 years in prison. Sheila Eddy, who showed no remorse, was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Skylar's parents fought to change laws, pushing for Skylar's Law so that West Virginia would issue immediate Amber Alerts for missing children, even if they were initially thought to be runaways. The murder of Skylar Nees is a chilling reminder that sometimes the people we trust most can be the most dangerous. What do you think? Were Sheila and Rachel just evil, or were there warning signs everyone missed? Imagine this. A young mom goes for a jog and vanishes without a trace. 3 weeks later, she's found bruised, chained, and half-starved on the side of the road. She claims she was kidnapped by 2 mysterious women. But the shocking truth, she staged the whole thing. This is the unbelievable story of Sherry Papini. Sherry lived in Redding, California. A picture-perfect suburban mom, married with 2 kids. She seemed like the last person who would disappear without warning. On November 2, 2016, she went out for a routine jog near her home and never came back. Her husband Keith returned to find her gone. Her phone and earbuds were discovered near the trail, tangled with strands of her hair. It looked like a kidnapping. The search was massive. Flyers, vigils, even national headlines. The community was terrified. Was there a kidnapper on the loose? Then, 22 days later, in the early hours of Thanksgiving morning, Sherry was found wandering along a highway, battered and barely recognizable. She was emaciated, her long blonde hair had been cut short, and she had bruises and restraints. When police asked what happened, Sherry claimed she had been abducted at gunpoint by 2 Hispanic women who held her captive. She described them in detail, even down to their jewelry and the smell of their perfume. The story was horrifying, but something about it didn't add up. For years, investigators searched for her supposed kidnappers, but evidence kept pointing somewhere else. DNA found on Sherry's clothes didn't match to women, it matched a man. In 2020, investigators tracked that DNA to Sherry's ex-boyfriend. He admitted the truth. Sherry had been hiding with him during her so-called kidnapping. She wasn't chained. She wasn't starved. She had even injured herself to make the story believable. Bruises, burns, even cutting her own hair. The woman the nation had pitied as a victim was actually the mastermind of an elaborate hoax. In 2022, Sherry Papini was arrested and charged with lying to federal agents and mail fraud. In court, she admitted she made it all up. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison. The public was outraged. Not only had she faked her kidnapping, but she had also wasted law enforcement resources, terrified her community, and fueled racial stereotypes with her false claims. The disappearance of Sherry Papini went from a tragedy to a scandal. A mother who fooled her family, her town, and the entire nation. What do you think? Was Sherry simply desperate for attention, or was there something much darker behind her lies?